What is imperfect competition? Imperfect competition, or also it is also called as the monopolistic competition. So it is a wide term which covers all market situation except perfect competition and perfect monopoly is called as the imperfect competition. When you distinguish the real situation of the market, you will come to know the difference between the perfect competition and the imperfect competition. The main distinguishing feature of imperfect competition is that market situation is studied under the average revenue. When you study between the average revenue and the average cost, you will come to know that there is a separate type of situation that arises in the imperfect competition. It is nothing but the average revenue curve. So in the average revenue curve, you could see the firm sloping downwards towards its length. That means if you consider the average revenue, it slopes down at different rates at different forms of imperfect competition. For example, if you study the AR curve, the AR curve slopes downwards more deeply under monopoly than under monopolistic competition. Now, if you study the monopolistic competition is also called as the imperfect competition. It has several characters. When it has several characters, we could see the close substitute of many factors with one another. Now, if you study the monopolistic competition features, it is of various kinds. It is like the first point, you will come to know regarding the existence of the several firms. You know that in the world of monopolistic competition, you could see that number of firms are competing. If you compare the perfect competition and the imperfect competition, in the imperfect competition you will come to know about the monopolistic competition. So the monopolistic competition is very larger and it is not as large as that is under the perfect competition. In the monopolistic competition, what happens? The number of firms will vary. It will be numbered from 10 to 25 or even 30. Now, when you study the characteristics of the monopolistic competition, the first characteristic that comes to aid is the number of firms are very large, but each firm will be a small sized firm controlling only a small part of the total market. That means if you consider the vast market, in the vast market you could see the small firms which entirety creates a large firm. But point to be noted, you will come to have a limited control over the price in the cases of the small organization, that is a small firm, small business organization. The second thing what we see is, since the number of firms are very large, there is no possibility of the collusion. Secret understanding between the firms will not be revealed to one another with regard to the price or the output. Thirdly, the number of the firms will be very large and there will be no question of interdependence of the firms. That means each firm will follow an independent price output policy without considering the reaction of the rival firms in the market. You know that in the market, so many organizations are competing, so many firms are competing. When you consider so many firms and the organization which are competing in the world, what happens? They should be dependent on one another. But in the case of the imperfect competition, there are existence of the several firms. Although there is an existence of the several firms, what happens? Each firms follow an independent price output policy without considering the reactions of the rival firms in the market. For example, consider the two firms which are involving in the shoe production, that is like Reebok and the Adidas. If you consider Reebok and the Adidas, though they are competing in the world, though they are independent of each other with the price output, they are the one who are competing without considering the rivalry among them. The second point you need to understand is the product differentiation. Product differentiation in the sense, you know that the various firms are under the monopolistic competition. When they are under the monopolistic competition, the products will be differentiated from one another. When the products are differentiated with one another, that is to say, the substitutes are very nearly to one another. For example, but point to be noted, there is no perfect substitute, like one product can't be replaced by the other. But point to be noted, the product differentiation can be found out by the quality of the material what you use, or through the workmanship one who creates the product, and through the differences in styling and the branding, and through the advertisement, and through the publicity, and through the propaganda. That is nothing but the sales promotion what you carried out. For example, if you consider the soap market, in the soap market you could see the Lux, Hamam, Rexona. So when these are the soap which are not identical but are the close substitutes of one another. The third, in the same product differentiation only, you need to understand the monopolistic competition. As I already told you, monopolistic competition is a situation that arises that consists of both the elements of monopoly as well as the competition. You know that the consumers are attached with particular brands of a commodity. That means either they are attached to Lux or they are attached to Hamam. But point to be noted, within their sphere, limited sphere. Suppose if they want to raise the price of one product, that is a soap product Lux, then there will be a little variation effect on its sales. That is Lux price if it is 10 rupees, Hamam price if it is 10 rupees, the 10 rupees 10 paisa, the person will go for the sale of the first product only, because he precisely considers the product by the amount of price that it is declared for the sales. So here it will have an adverse effect on the sales. Yet the firm is so afraid of the competition from the rival firms. You know that it is not in a position to raise the price of its product, but in a substantial measure. That is what the second point of the monopolistic competition says. That is the second important characteristics of the monopolistic competition. Now, if you consider the third characteristic, that it is nothing but a sloping demand curve. So, when you consider the sloping demand curve, if you consider the monopolistic competition, in the monopolistic competition, it is also one of the monopolistic competition where you will consider the average revenue curve. So that in the perfect competition you could see that there is a horizontal line parallel to the x-axis. That is why, but when you consider the monopolistic competition, in the monopolistic competition what happens, they wanted to sell more and more, though there is a cut down in the price. That is, in the perfect competition you could see the presence of the reduction in the price if wants to increase its sales. Point to be noted, the very important point you need to understand, that is nothing but the demand curve. So as the demand increases, ultimately the average revenue curve of the monopolistic competitive firm will be more elastic than that of the average revenue curve of a monopoly firm. That is why the product of the firm under the monopolistic competition, it has a close substitute which is available in the market. But when you consider the product of the monopoly firm, it has no substitute available in the market. That is why the demand curve slopes downwards of the firm under the monopolistic competition. It is very steep. That means when you compare the demand curve, when you compare the supply curve, in that you could see the monopoly firm is very low. Monopoly firm is very having a competition with the what do you call the other oligopoly competitor firm. I hope you understood this. Okay, now let us discuss about the short-term equilibrium of the firm under the monopolistic competition. Now, as I already told you, short-term monopolistic equilibrium of the firm, it is under the monopolistic competition. Now, when we emphasize the very important characteristics of the firm, we see to that as it is only purely the profit that is earned by the firm is a question. If the firm earns abnormal profit by bringing out the new and the popular product into the market, it will have to be very alert if it wants to continue these profits. The main reason behind the profits is that abnormal profits is that due to the temptation to the other and that of the existence of the same group of which is bringing the similar products and compete away from the abnormal profits of the firm in question. You know that abnormal profit, when you consider either it is a monopolistic competition or it is a oligopoly competition, we see to that as monopolistic competition, any abnormal profits cannot be earned by the firm. So if the monopolistic competition earns any abnormal profit by the firm, it will tend to be competed away in the long period. But if you consider the short period, there you could see that the firm under the monopolistic competition may be able to earn abnormal profits because other firms are not in a position to bring one closely similar products in that period. So nor can even as new firms can enter into that group within a short period of time. You know that a company, if it has to compete in the world of the monopolistic competition, it needs the existence of the group which is working for a longer period. But in the case of the short period, there we see the abnormal profits may exist, but in the long period they are bound to be composed away by the other firms. What is the result of this? The result will be that in the form of a monopolistic competition which is run in the long period equilibrium position, but where the individual firms cannot earn the normal profits. But when you study according to Professor Chamberlain, if you study the firm which is under the monopolistic competition, it has a wide range of decisions to make under the perfect competition. The firm may vary in the price, the firm may vary in the sales, the firm may vary in the output. When it is varying, it is that the quality of the product matters a lot and the sales promotional activities has to be carried out. So let us move on from the short-term equilibrium position to the very important aspect, that is the price output adjustments of the firm. You know that the objective of the short period organization or the long period organization, it is that in the market to earn the profit. If it is attaining the profit, that means that in the short run it can attain the equilibrium position. As the market firms, the firm under the monopolistic competition attempts to maximize its profits. It will therefore choose that price and level of the output which is available to secure the maximum amount of profit. Here I have to tell that the equilibrium is indicated by the equality marginal revenue and the marginal cost. That is in the case of the price output adjustments that is seen in the short run. But when you consider in the short period what happens, the firm in the sense which is under the monopolistic competition will have to have the average fixed cost, average variable cost, average total unit cost and the marginal cost. But in the long run, the firm will have only its average total unit cost and its corresponding marginal cost. So this is what we see in the shorter period equilibrium position which is under the monopolistic conditions. I hope you understood this. I think you can understand this. Let us see the remaining in tomorrow's class. Thank you. Bye.